Hi guys, welcome back once more. We have an amazing guest today here. His name is Ben Mauro. I'm sure you have heard about him. I've been following his work for a long time. He has been inspiring me, and he's a concept designer that works on some really big titles in the movies and games. Maybe you know Elysium is one of them. There is Metal Gear, and his work is freaking amazing. Hi Ben.
Hey, nice to, hey everyone.
Welcome to the stream. I'm super happy to have you here. We can talk about a lot of stuff,
Sure.
and like with every guest, I would like to start with how did you start doing this? I know that you, if I'm correct, if I'm mistaken, please correct me. You studied in Pasadena, right?
Yep, at Art Center College of Design. Um, Originally, I'm from Michigan, and I think at the time there wasn't really any information
Oh,
about this
right, for
stuff.
a long time.
Um, I think at the time I really loved the original Halo game, and I really wanted to make architecture for video games. And at the time, the only thing I heard of was a school in Seattle called DigiPen, which is like just for video games and animation and stuff. So I kind of went there for a little bit. And then in the middle of that, I kind of realized I really liked design a lot and transitioned down to Art Center and found that all the designers I wanted to be like were coming out of Art Center. Sid Mead and Craig Mullins and Scott Robertson and all these guys. It was just kind of like the source of all this kind of industrial design training. Um, and just kind of Scott hadn't made his books yet, and a lot of these tutorials and
Mm.
things had been online. So you kind of had to go there to learn that stuff. But now it's so great because everyone's got a tutorial for like $5 or something, and it's really easy to learn stuff. But at the time, that was kind of the only way to do it.
Yeah, the times have changed. I remember Scott Robertson books when they came out. They were all only GNOME CDs and stuff like that before.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
I think those were just starting to come out when I started. And again, all those guys were from Art Center, so I was like, well, I got to go there.
Yeah. The art center. I mean, it's everybody's dream to go there. It's one of those universities that has that such a high reputation about
Sure,
design. Did you enjoy there?
I did. But I think now, I don't know if I would do it now, just because there's so many. Unless you needed like a visa or something,
Yeah,
uh, just you could get like the exact education I got for like $100 of Gumroads or something. There's so much amazing information out there now. Like it's almost an overwhelming amount of information. So like I think if I was starting, I would just do a bunch of Gumroads, teach myself everything,
yeah, of course.
spend $100 instead of going like 300K in debt or whatever it might cost now.
Yeah,
But it still is a great place to learn if you uh, have the funds to do that, and the time also is very good, and being in person is very good as well. Like there's a lot of smaller schools like Brainstorm and Concept Design Academy and all these things in Pasadena where I also took classes, and getting that one-on-one in-class training is also quite good sometimes as well. But if you're pretty self-motivated, you can get an amazing education for like $100, with all the stuff available now.
yeah. Do you think that the person, I mean, when you say that about Pasadena and going to the other places where you can learn, do you think that the person can learn a lot? I think that younger designers want to hear about that. Do you think that the designer he just needs someone to push him a little bit, and the rest is up to him to do, because it's after all, that's my opinion. It's a after all a self-taught taught thing, because as designers we need to learn everything literally by ourselves. So you just need a little push, and then it all starts. All the pieces get fit.
I mean, a lot of it depends on what you want to do as well. Like, if I wanted to be an animation artist, that's a different skill set than being like a concept designer for movies. And some things in games is different than movies. And if you want to just be an illustrator, like doing magic cards and things like I think there's a lot of avenues to take. It's not just like a one size fits all. I learned this one thing and now I can do everything.
Yeah,
There's definitely areas to specialize in. If you really want to be an illustrator, you can totally have a great career and make great income doing this one thing or that thing or that thing. But I think what made like the LA Pasadena area great is just all the training for all these different things is all there. So if maybe you spend a year and you're like, I really don't want to work in movies or something, I want to work in animation, you can easily just switch in like a second and just learn from the best in the industry, in the class right next door or something. You don't have to fly to another country or whatever, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty unique there because the whole industry is really there, and all the best artists teach and give back to the community and stuff, which is cool. I lost my train of thought right there.
No worries, no worries. We are here. Just tell me. I have one question. You started using ZBrush very early, as I remember from your work. What made you start using it? Because when you started using, not a lot of people were using it there. And I remember that you posted on YouTube. There was a tutorial where you were making a mech out of ZBrush and saying.
Sorry, I think the audio went out real quick. Hello? I think you might have cut out. Should we try calling back? I think might have cut out. Oh wait, I hear something now. Hello?
I'm back.
Okay.
Something happened with my microphone. I have no idea. I apologize. So what I wanted to ask, I wanted to ask about the ZBrush. You started using it very early. What made you choose that software, and why did you go that route?
I think a lot of it early on for me was like in school, they didn't really have a lot of that, and I was still pretty early on. And when I went down to New Zealand at Weta, you kind of have, that's some of the things I kind of talk about sometimes, is like being a production artist in games and movies and stuff. It's almost like an arms race. There's new skills and new things happening all the time, and if you don't adapt and keep up, you kind of get left behind. Even if you don't learn new stuff for like 6 to 12 months, you kind of can already be behind. So ZBrush at the time was like, I was trained to do the idea, but I didn't know how to build the idea. And so I saw there was like a huge process in film. It's like, okay, the idea gets taken from this stage, then it gets sculpted in this stage, and there's more approval and back and forth, which ends up getting changed in things. And then it gets handed off to the VFX guys. So I wanted to be able to control and take care of my whole design all the way through, right, before it gets handed off. I didn't want 2 or 3 people in between kind of adjusting things without me being able to have my input on it. So a lot of it was just out of necessity of the environment I was in. I wanted to be able to design it and sculpt it and finish it and hand it off and make sure the director liked my design and I took it all the way through, kind of thing. Same thing with like photo bashing and stuff like this. On Elysium, the director liked that stuff, so I just got to learn it, or else they just pick those designs and they ignore the designs that aren't as photoreal or finished or whatever. They really like to see the thing that looks closest to what it's going to look like in the movie as soon as possible a lot of the time. So again, you just kind of have to adapt to the changing situation.
Yeah, the industry is quite fast when you're designing stuff. It's insanely fast, and you need to do everything in a heartbeat, literally, which is for new people when they're coming to the industry a little bit of a shocker. And I always it is.
I was going to say, I think I remember what I was going to say before. You were saying about like if you're just motivated or whatever, and you're starting out.
Yeah.
Like, what do you need? I think as long as you know what you want to do, just try to like break things down to like, okay, I want to learn that. I definitely think it's good to learn things in stages, like kind of like the Scott Robertson sort of stuff, the draw through and perspective, like learn how to draw and come up with ideas in perspective, like learning these kind of stages. I think like brainstorming, again, a lot of these schools will teach you things in kind of a progression of just like, here's the foundation things you need to start with. and here's how you can grow and expand them into more and more complex things, but make sure you learn this core fundamental drawing forms in space, drawing, rendering, and designing forms from imagination on paper is a good foundation skill to have before you get into like ZBrush and Octane and Moto and whatever, Blender and all this stuff that we're using now. So I think the motivation and excitement to learn all this stuff should definitely be there. But it does help making sure that all your instructors are working professionals, I think, is probably the most important thing. And that's what made Art Center so special, is all the teachers had to be working professionals. So like, you're getting the most up-to-date information. And again, Gumroads, it helps as well, because all these guys are working in studios and they don't have time to teach, but they can do these little tutorials and things. So you get the most current, up-to-date information about what's going on. So you can get the most kind of cutting-edge skills of what everyone's doing.
Yeah, that's very important, because as you said, the industry is changing, and we are always questioning where it's gonna go. I know that the VR is now a big thing. Are you using a VR?
I do have a Rift just right there. I use it not so much for work stuff yet, but I do find it helpful for blocking things out. I know Finian and a lot of these other guys in Jama use it quite a bit, but I haven't used it enough to get in my workflow. I feel like the Rift's screen display is still a little too low res, but it's okay for sculpting things out and stuff. I think the next generation will be pretty good, where it can eye track and focus a little better. So it kind of hurts my eyes right now if I stay in too long, but yeah, it's very exciting. There's some very exciting possibilities for all that stuff.
Yeah, it looks like it will have a great future, because it's something really new. And I remember when I was trying it out, when you look at your design and you are immediately, for example, sitting in a car, that is fascinating to me. Like we can see the design. It's crazy, because it will speed up process even faster now, and we are always looking for that.
I think the best thing is just you see it at human scale. So like a robot I designed for something I'm working on, I was designing it in ZBrush or something, and I'm like, oh, that looks pretty cool. But when I put it into VR and did some other details on it, I can put the scale of like, okay, it's like maybe 8 feet tall, and I'm standing there as a human, like, oh, okay, I'm not even going to see that, or it really needs to have more antenna or something on it to feel intimidating, or to feel like how I want it to feel. Whereas maybe I was drawing it too flat on or something, or sculpting it at a weird scale. It does help immediately see what it's going to look like to an audience, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it opens many questions that 3D or 2D can't open. It makes you question a lot of stuff, which is always great for design, because design is always about questioning stuff. How does it work, and is it gonna work? I remember your Gorilla bot, and I'm showing it now on the screen. It is cool. It is so cool. I remember that you made the toys, right, out of it.
Yeah, we made a like a kind of model kit, garage kit through Industrial Mechanic. I'd still love to make a toy you could just buy and it's all painted and stuff, but it took a long time just to do that little model kit, and toy stuff takes a long time, but it's really fun. I'd still have to do more of that down the line.
Yeah, how did that happen, by the way, to start doing a toy? Did he see your work, or you offered it? How did it happen?
I think it was something like that. He was interested. I might have got in touch as well, and just again, back to like the ZBrush stuff, because I design things and then build it, it's kind of almost ready to go. There was also another artist, Stefano, who did the final modeling to make sure all the joints and stuff work, which at the time I didn't really know how to do. So it is a bit of work making sure all the joints can clip together and things, and I don't have a lot of the time to do that level of things. But someone like Vitaly Bugarov his models are so clean and tight, like he can just send his model off to the printer and the toy is ready to go. Or one of my friends, Edon, is making like gun weapon parts, and he models his stuff so clean that you can just like hit print and machine out the knife or the muzzle brake on your weapon and just go sell it. Which, again, it gets exciting when you're a designer and you can build all your stuff to such a clean, high level that you can just make a product immediately. Make a toy, make a real world product. It's pretty exciting, having all these things at our fingertips. And something like Moy doesn't, it's like $40 or something, and you can make super clean CAD designs. It's, again, all the information is out there, and all the programs and things are getting so inexpensive, or like Blender, it's free. It's pretty exciting time.
It is very exciting time, right? It is very, very, for all of us professionals and amateurs, because you can use literally everything. 5 years ago, you couldn't use half of the stuff, or it was too expensive to use. Have you jumped on a train of Blender?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fully. I think Jama released some intro to Blender tutorial, and I saw what he was doing, and like every single thing he did, I'm like, I can use this immediately at work. And I just spent a Saturday going through that tutorial, and I was using it at work the next, Monday or whatever. And it's probably the easiest program I've ever picked up. And I love it. And now with 2.8 is even better. It's like, I can't wait for them to officially release that, and for Octane to update their plugin for that, and it'll be amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is very intuitive software, because when I jump to it, maybe it is because we learned so many softwares before it. I don't know, is it that, or it is because they are so intuitive?
Like, I was on the fence for Moto for so long, and I'm kind of glad I waited for Blender, because Moto still feels a little overly complicated for me. But I don't know why, but for some reason Blender just felt, when Jama went through everything, I'm like, oh, that makes sense, because he taught it the way Blender was designed, instead of like changing everything around to be like one of these old legacy programs, which is a little overly complicated for me. But everything in Blender just, I don't know, it just kind of made sense for me. I was like, oh, that seems logical. I didn't have any weird hangups of like, oh, in 3ds Max, this button is always like this, and that's so weird. I can't use Blender because it's too weird. Like, I just was like, oh, okay, yep, that button does that. Okay, that button does that. Sure. And just super easy to pick up. It was really good.
So you hear it, guys. Check out Blender, because it's free, and Ben Mauro is using it. Yeah.
2.8 is so good. It's like 2.79 was a little rough around the edges in some areas, or it just looked a little antiquated a bit, but 2.8 just feels like why would you pay money for something more? Like, this is better than all these other things, and it's $0, You just have to pay money for like hard ops and all these cool plugins that just save you so much time. I think that's the biggest thing, is the plugin community. Like, that was the reason that scared me off of all these legacy programs like 3ds Max and stuff, is like, I know I want to create this thing, and to do it in those programs, like, I have to do these 15 steps to do this thing that I want to create. Whereas in Blender, with all these plugins, is like, I just press this one button to do the one thing that I want to do. And I think that's why ZBrush made more sense to me. It's like, oh, I'm just sculpting. That makes sense. I do this, and I'm just making this thing. And it was very one-to-one. And I feel like Blender, with all this stuff, it feels more one-to-one. Like, I have an idea, and I'm making the idea, and the tech and thing isn't getting in the way of me creating what I want to create. It's really good. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't block out your creative parts that you need to think about technical stuff. Like when I was using Maya, there is so much technical stuff while I'm designing, and then starts blending, and you don't know what you're doing. And same happened to me when I switched to Blender. When I saw hard ops and the Boxcutter, I was shocked what I'm seeing on my screen, what's happening. And it's one of the best things that happened in the concept design and design industry, that Boxcutter and hard ops. I think they're amazing.
And also the speed flow, there's some really cool stuff in there. And what are the other ones? Mesh flow or mesh machine or something. There's like
batch
4 or
ops,
5.
batch ops also.
Kit ops as well, and decal machine or something.
Oh yeah, decal machine is that also, when I saw it cuts process. So which render you use? You use Keyshot and Octane, right? Or
right now I use Keyshot occasionally, but it's still mostly Cycles and Eevee and Octane right now, or mostly. But now it's mainly, usually it ends up being Eevee and Cycles, just because it's so fast, and sometimes the plugin for Octane is a little, it hasn't updated for 2.8, and 2.79 is a little slow sometimes compared to standalone, so I'll just going to the standalone usually now.
Yeah,
Even though it's a little hard to control cameras and stuff for me still in the standalone, but again, Jama made some great tutorials and it's much easier to use now.
check Jama tutorials, guys. I will post them in the comment chat because I bought some of them and they are one of the best out there. They are really good.
He does a great job of. Again, I'm not super technical artist, so like he comes at it as more of an illustrator, and that's kind of how I learned ZBrush and tried to teach ZBrush. Was like, there's a million things on the screen right now, but just look at these 5 things and you can start creating. And I feel like Jama did that for Blender and for Octane pretty well. Julian Gauthier, sorry, I'm probably mangling his last name, but did a way more in-depth technical one that I learned a lot from as well. But I think Jama's simplified a lot of things that allowed me to get more into the in-depth stuff that Julian covered as well. But just people who can simplify things down for more artists and illustrators, it's super helpful.
Yeah, it helps definitely, and there is not a lot of people who can do that.
It takes someone really exploring and going into all these more complex pathways. Von Lang does a really good job as well, doing some more technical stuff. I think he still goes over my head sometimes, but I really want to learn more things that he does. Like he really gets in there, and again, because he's kind of coming from the more moto background, so he gets a lot of the technical stuff goes a little bit over my head still, but I definitely want to go and be able to do a lot of that stuff as well, like just fully texturing everything. I'm doing a little bit of that kind of stuff right now, but the level that Vaughn takes it is really cool.
Yeah, speaking about that, about someone who is creating and explores it, I know that you went on a trip around the world. How did that happen? I want to hear more about that because I'm planning also something like that, and I want to hear.
It's funny because I did that for about, like, I was in New Zealand for almost about 4 years, and after that, like the whole time, that's kind of what I wanted to do since college. Like I really want to travel the world, see the world, and figure out a way to make that work. And after New Zealand, it was just like, let's figure it out. You know, I'd figure out how to freelance, get some clients. Luckily, Call of Duty really liked the work I did on Elysium and a lot of these sci-fi projects like that. So it ended up being pretty easy to lock in some really long-term clients, and that kind of helped fund this. It was about 3 years on the road. I sold all my stuff. I had like a backpack with a laptop and a Wacom, and a suitcase with a couple clothes and stuff, and just kind of started traveling around and just tried to see and live out of a suitcase, get the most out of every day, and try to balance. The only thing I do regret is I didn't get to explore and see a lot of the places as much as I would have, but I do kind of like that having to work while I was there helped focus things, so I got the most out of every day instead of, sometimes you can kind of get used to a place and maybe don't get the full experience when you kind of don't really have a deadline or something. So if it's like I got 3 days to finish a deadline, once the deadline's sent off, there's usually a couple days for notes and revision, so I can explore all weekend or something and then off to the next place, or however the schedule ended up being. Sometimes it was traveling for work. So like on Valerian, I went to Paris for almost a year, back and forth sometimes, and that was really cool as well. And a lot of times it's just, I really want to see Japan, or I really want to see, whatever country we're traveling in, and sometimes stay for a long time. Sometimes stay only for a week or two. It was really cool. I kind of would like to do it again, but now I feel like that, if life is like a bunch of RPG meters or something, the travel meter is maxed out, and I want to just take it, like, slow down and for a couple of years. But I definitely do it again. I definitely recommend anyone to do that if they're in a place to do that. I wouldn't take that back for anything, for sure.
it gave you the new experiences, the new creative energy, I'm sure,
Yeah.
because different places, different sightseeings, different everything, and I'm sure that you creatively opened quite a lot your style and everything because of
Yeah,
that.
it was really good. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do things in life, right? Like everything's just a choice or decision. Like I have friends who, didn't travel and they've got a nice house now and they're starting a family and stuff. And like after all those years of traveling, I basically have nothing. My bank account's like zero or whatever because all my money was spent traveling, and I wanted to just experience life, experience the world, and see all there was to see. Um, and so, now I want more stability and kind of have a house and all this kind of more traditional things. But at the time, I just wanted to explore the world. Um,
I think you did a great thing with that. I think you did a great because the house is a house, but traveling the
yeah,
world is traveling the world after all.
and I feel like the older we get, the harder it is to make the time to do that. So I feel like even now, like I'm kind of settling down a little bit, and it does get harder because then you start getting attached to things, and your life gets more complicated, and there's a lot more things going on in your life, and the idea of like, oh, I'm going to take 2 years off to just live out of a suitcase it's harder. It's harder to do once there's a lot more responsibilities and things in your life.
Yeah.
Um,
Speaking about inspiration and you getting inspired, I want to know what inspires Ben Mauro because your design is very unique. And when I was starting out, I would look at it quite a lot. I was a stalker of your work. And I would look at quite a lot, and I was always impressed with the shapes and how they are all working together with the function. What
sure.
inspires Ben Mauro, and what, how did that evolve? Where did it start? What do you look for?
I think a lot of it was just I'm kind of like a sponge. I just absorb everything around me. Just looking at nature, especially looking at how real machines work. Taking things apart, putting them back together, building model kits. Just kind of having that sense of curiosity to look into things. At Weta, I was surrounded by some amazing senior talent that I learned a ton from, of course. Every new job, I'm always learning from the people around me. I try to always pick jobs where I'm the worst person in the room if I can. So I'm surrounded by people so much better than me that I'm always just absorbing so much every day. Even now at 343, I've been working for a long time, and getting to work with Sparth and Martin and Darren Dakin and a lot of my coworkers who I admire and look up to even now. Um, I'm in an environment where I'm learning every day, and I hope I'm always constantly finding
Oh,
environments like that.
yeah, that it's very important to have somebody you can look up to because especially if they are doing different stuff than you.
Sure.
At least for me, I do concept art, hard surface, but when I look at environments and other stuff, they can inspire me in a second. For example,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
looking Jama's tutorials, I mean, inspires you. He does different stuff from me, and it opens my horizons completely. So I completely understand what you're speaking.
It's also an interesting thing is when I was in a studio, I learned a lot, and then when I left, you're kind of relying on the things you learned, and I did learn a lot and grow freelancing, but you're pretty isolated. And I think after the end of like the 3 years, you start to feel like something's missing, and you're kind of running out of steam, and you keep getting asked to do the same jobs over and over, and you keep getting asked to do the same types of things over and over. And the money's amazing because you've gotten so skilled at this particular type of thing that they want you to make. Um, but that feeling of something missing kind of made me want to go back and do in-house again, find another environment where you're the worst person in the room, and you're learning every day, and kind of like going back to school or something. And I feel like this kind of back and forth is pretty healthy. Like maybe you feel like you've learned the most you can learn in your environment, and it's time to go off on your own. Once you've kind of got that experience, it's maybe something's missing, and time to go back or find another experience where you're growing and learning every day. And um, again, there's always ups and downs, and um, just kind of different flavors of life, and finding the things you need at the time you need them in your life something to be kind of aware of in the back of your mind. Um,
Since you did both, you did freelance, you did in-house. What is the main difference for you between those two, and which one do you like more? Do you like more being in a studio, if I understood correctly now, because or you're for both? It just depends from your mood.
I think a lot of it came down to like being aware of where I was in my life and what I needed and what I didn't need. Um, Being at Weta was like a huge education for me. Um, but it got to again, it's like a learning curve, and there's a point where the curve tapers off, and it's like I'm not learning as much anymore, and you can kind of see if I stay here, maybe I will still improve, but it won't be very much. And I don't think that's going to be the best environment anymore for me. Like I've learned what I came here to learn, and now it's time for me to find the next place, or take the thing on the road, and I want to see the world, and that's kind of the next thing that is right for me at that moment in my life. And freelancing was different experience as well. Again, it's more like I went into this experience and I learned how to make like a hamburger or something.
Mm.
And now people I can sell this hamburger to all these clients while I'm freelancing. But after a while, it's like, man, I've been making a hamburger for like 6 years. I want to try to learn how to make something else.
Yeah.
And so I want to go back in and learn from people who can make all these different things, and I can learn from them every day. Maybe I'm not very good at it at the beginning, but I learn and grow pretty fast. So that every day there's another, big learning curve. And right now at work, it's like a huge uphill learning curve, which is awesome. That's exactly where I want to be right now.
I see.
So it's just being aware of where your skill set is, what you're trying to learn, what you want to learn, making sure that environment you're in is catering to that. And when the environment is no longer catering to that, and you feel like the things you need aren't there anymore, maybe it's time to think about something else, or try something else, or find a new environment that will nurture the things you want to learn if you can't get it where you currently are.
Because a lot of people struggle with the thing that you're talking about, and that's that learning curve. Does that how did you learn? Because when you're speaking now, you're talking about it really easy, and you're saying it's a learning curve. How did you learn to cope with that discomfort of learning all the time new stuff?
Um,
Was it hard before, or
I think it was because I started in school, right? Like the initial drive was like, I love video games, or whatever it is that you love. I want to learn how to do this for a living. And so for me, it's like all this stress and pain is worth it if the end result is me getting to do the thing that I really love. And through the process of doing that, you don't really like playing games or whatever anymore, but sometimes it makes the thing, kind of ruins the thing you love sometimes. But I feel like I've gotten back to a place where I really love the things that I'm working on again.
Yeah.
And but sometimes it does get to a point where like, oh, I love movies, and then after working in movies for like 6 years or 10 years or whatever, you're like, it kind of ruins it. Like you can't watch a movie anymore because you're just nitpicking every little thing. Like, oh, look how they did that, and it still is hard to watch the movies I worked on, but I can still watch other movies pretty easily.
So you don't watch the movies that you did, or you do watch them?
I can only watch the movies I worked on maybe one. I think I've only watched them once, and some of them not at all. I won't tell you which.
I mean, that's crazy that it changes perception so much. I mean, like,
it's hard because it's like sometimes it's like, man, I worked on this thing for 6 months and it got cut, or you see it in the background for like half a second, and we spent all this time making this thing, and then it's just kind of it kind of shows you the kind of, it's like seeing how a sausage is made or something. You kind of don't want to eat it. Some like
takes out the magic.
You're just like, I don't know if I want to eat that now. That's kind of gross how all that got made. So it kind of is like that a little bit, but I think in hindsight it'll be easier to go back and watch and look at all this stuff. But earlier on it was pretty tough sometimes.
Yeah. You worked on some really big titles like Valerian, Elysium. What was how did that happen that you worked on a Valerian with Luc Besson, because that was a huge project, and I remember when you posted work it was crazy good. How did that happen?
Um, he found a lot of actually student work I did that was kind of a cool thing was uh, a lot of work I did as a student that I just did for fun that I thought was cool. It was kind of very Mobius French inspired, influenced, and he loved all that stuff. And I think I was still in New Zealand at the time, and I did a little bit of work like many years ago for an earlier pitch, and then it kind of went away, and I was like, I probably is never going to get made. And then 5 years later or something, it's like, yeah, we're going to make this now. And I kind of kept in touch with him and worked on some of his smaller films like Lucy and stuff like this. And it's like, oh, are we going to make Valerian? Come on, come on. And I think Guardians of the Galaxy came out, so it was like cool, big sci-fi was coming back again. And then Star Wars was starting to get made again, and it felt like the right time. And he was able to get funding and stuff. And it was really fun. It was a fun couple of years working on that. It was probably the most kind of intimate I was ever on a production from start to finish. Luke was really fun to work with and really hands-on, creative and stuff. And he knew what he wanted, and was, I didn't feel like any time was wasted. He was like, there was a question, he's like, no, like this and this, or let me see what you can come up with. And he kind of really trusted the artist to come up with something cool. And if there's a lot of times where you work on something and you'll do a couple different ideas, and you'll think, oh man, that one's so cool. It's totally not going to get picked, and I probably shouldn't submit it because it's just going to get thrown away. But with Luke, the one that you thought is good, he would always pick and be like, yeah, that's it. So it's cool. It was cool to see that kind of being on the same wavelength sometimes, because a lot of times you're just like, they're never going to pick that. I probably shouldn't even submit it or something.
Yeah. So that happens a lot of times, that you're not on the same length. I mean, it happens to me. I know that the designer, that the producer is thinking differently, or the director is thinking differently, and it's always nice when you see that somebody is understanding what you're doing.
Yeah, a lot of it is learning to read the client as well. Like, and over time we end up, picking the clients that we're usually on the same wavelength. So it's just pretty straightforward work, and there's less stress. And if they like how you think, or you both think the same way, it's much less stressful job, and you don't have to like be a mind reader all day and not knowing what they want, and it can be stressful sometimes. But you get better at that over time.
Yeah. Will we see you this year at some conferences? Are you coming to THU maybe, or?
Yeah. I don't think I've been. I think Andre got in touch, but he hasn't checked in yet, so I'm not sure about THU. I'll be at Lightbox in Pasadena.
Nice.
And I think I'll be going to one in Berlin Playgrounds. Next year is going to be crazy with work, so I'll try to get a couple in this year before we're kind of crunch mode till the game ships, kind of thing.
I see. If you're coming to THU, you have drinks on me. I will be there, so we can have fun and talk.
Sure.
And you do a lot of mechs, and it's very science fiction design, which I really like. What is your advice to young students? How can they improve their style to be cool as yours, and how do they evolve? That's my question. So you get that unique. When I see this, I know this is Ben Mauro. How do you think?
I think a lot of things is just understanding what's been done before. A lot of the times people be like, oh my God, that's so cool. And you're like, oh, well, that's just Shiro, or that's just Yoji Shinkawa, or that's just, if you don't understand the history of where things came from, it's going to be hard to pave a new path, or make something that is hopefully new. But a lot of the times it's understanding where things came from, understanding all these kind of genres and school of, say, robotic or mech design. A lot of amazing things happened from Japan and France, and just being aware of where these styles and things originated from, and how you could potentially interpret that or remix that and try to come up with something new. Obviously, looking at real world robotics and things, and kind of nature, of course. You can take a cool car or something and, take a whale, and what happens when you merge those together, you can come up with something cool. Nature, I think, is the hugest source of inspiration. Doug Chang talked about that a lot in some of his talks, where especially the old episode 1 designs that he did, I knew that was one of my inspirations when I was in school. And it was cool to hear him break down his inspirations for those, where I knew I liked it, but I knew there was something there, but I didn't know what it was. And he was like, oh, I was looking at a hummingbird. Here's a photo of the hummingbird that I was using, and here's the robot on this speeder thing. And I'm like, oh, of course. And you see how he took the shapes of the hummingbird or a certain beetle or something. And I think that talk is on YouTube from Star Wars convention from last year or earlier this year. That I definitely recommend checking that out. It's really cool to see how he showed a lot of his inspiration source, and I'd highly recommend that. Just understanding what's been done and looking at reality and trying to take these odd sources of inspiration, like something real and something imaginary, and kind of merging them together and see what comes out. You can get some really interesting results.
I see. I mean, I've just looked for his talk, and I am posting it in chat so people can see
Yeah,
it.
it's like from some Star Wars.
The concept art of Star Wars he was talking.
Something like that. Yeah, it was like some
the
big
evolution of Star Wars, actually.
something like that. Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, that was really good.
He is talking about how I watched it. Yeah, it's a really good one. And Ben, what makes a successful design for you?
I think it's definitely has to be memorable. It has to be something you can easily sketch a second after you've seen it and go do something else. Like it stays with you for a long time. It's something that we're always chasing, of course. Like a lot of the old Star Wars designs are just, a TIE fighter, a X-Wing. It's like using the alphabet to create strong shapes that you can remember. Everyone knows the alphabet. I'm always chasing what I refer to as timeless design, and analyzing these things. Like why does one car look great 60 years later and one thing that comes out this year looks terrible next, in 5 months? There's a lot of
because of the managers, because of them pushing the work too fast.
But again, it's something to be aware of and something to start thinking about and analyzing. Like why is this thing so good and still looks cool 50, 100 years later? And why does this thing that's 1 year old look terrible and cheesy or corny or whatever you want to call it? And starting to group these things and develop a taste as an artist and designer. And these are a lot of things that it's hard to get in school maybe, or you'll kind of get the basics, but then I think starting to think about this as early as possible will be good. Like what do I like? What do I want to say? What do I want to do? That's what I was going to talk about. Was when I was freelancing, I was also trying to work on my own stuff. So a lot of this kind of technical skill that I was missing out on, a lot of my time was going into developing my own things and my own ideas. And it does take up a lot of time, but I think it's a worthwhile thing to investing in yourself to make your own things and grow as an artist and designer. Should always try to make time for this sort of stuff, for sure, no matter how long you've been doing it.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned you were working on your IP. Do you still work on that?
Or... Oh yeah, yep.
How is that going? If you can say something about it.
It's getting to the end. It's been almost probably 3 years. I started it maybe 5 years ago, but probably 3 years of my free time. But that was another reason I wanted to go in-house, was because all my free time went into that. And so I felt like I was also falling behind on all these cool technical skills, like, Blender and Octane and all these things were kind of coming up, and I just didn't have time to learn all that stuff. So it's been good being back in-house where I can now do this on the job and learn all this stuff. And I'm actually finding all these things I'm learning is helping feed into what I was working. I was worried it would slow down what I was working on, but it just actually sped things up because I'm learning something new at work, and then it's like, oh, maybe I could try this new technique I learned in Blender, and I can make this cool big scene now that maybe would have been harder to do the other way I was thinking about doing it. So don't be scared of learning new things. You never know how all these things, you learn all these things and your mind starts thinking about how you can piece them together and use them in different ways that maybe you couldn't have anticipated had you not learned it.
Yeah, because for me, I always compare it as a bucket of material for molding, because the more material you have in that bucket, the easier mold's gonna get when you pour it. And for me, yeah, I have the same experience. The more software I know, the more tricks I know, I can implement them in something. And
it's interesting though. It's tough because like in school they were always like, oh, you got to specialize, and I see the value of that, but I was always of the opposite mind of just trying to do a bit of everything and learn a bit of everything, and it does kind of slow you down a bit because you're doing so many different things, but that kind of excites me more. Whereas if I just wanted to be a character guy and all I did was characters, or I just wanted to be an environment guy and all I did was environments every single day, you definitely get really good really fast doing like one thing. But something about doing a bit of everything really excites me and keeps my mind interested more. And I think also because I want to do it for myself, so maybe it takes 4 times longer to do everything, but long term, I want to be able to, we spend all these years on movies and games for other people, but I'm trying to learn how to do every job so that I can do it for myself on my own projects, which if I was just doing characters or I was just doing one thing, it would be hard for me to do that because I couldn't do all these other things that would be needed for a big project.
I see. I think that you chose smart because you're definitely not a designer that can do only one thing. I think you can do everything with your style and with your design. I think it's you can see that on your work, that you can do everything literally, which is very fascinating to me.
I feel like environment stuff is like you're leveling up all these things. I feel like environments, I'm at work, I'm doing a lot more of that. So I'm like, again, being aware of what you're strong and weak at is always good to kind of keep in the back of your mind. And if something's, not keeping up with everything else, make sure to get better at that. So you're kind of offering your skill set is very well balanced and rounded.
More jobs in freelance if you can do more stuff,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. It is easier if you're free. Yeah, for a freelancer, it's very good if you're good at many things.
More companies can contact you and more stuff you can do. When I started out, I was doing only vehicles. And even though I still love doing vehicles and stuff like that, but I had to expand my stuff because if I only did vehicles, there wouldn't be a lot of jobs. So I had to, and I was like, I'm gonna do hard surface because I already knew that from industrial design. And yeah, for freelance guys, it's very important to do that kind of stuff and not get stuck. And I can see that with a lot of designers that are saying, oh, I don't have a job, I don't have this, I don't have that. Yeah. But it's all about the evolution, as you said, and learning new stuff. That's how you expand, and that's how you attract new people and new clients.
Yeah, diversifying your skill set, learning how to do new things. Again, a lot of it's being aware of you should get into it because there's something that you really love. Like maybe you really love vehicles, like you said, but also being aware of the realities of the production of a game or a movie. And it's like, okay, maybe there's one big drop ship in the game and there's one big truck in the game and maybe 2 other things. So there's 4 things you can do on this game. And then after that, that's all you have in your portfolio. That's all they think you can do. So you got to go find another project that has those things to do. But if you can also do the weapons and the props and the environments or whatever, they can hire you for like however long you want to, years and years and years, they can hire you instead of a couple months to do these couple isolated tasks that they need for the game or movie.
Yeah. How did you stay relevant, Ben? Because of the freelance, and I know when you sign an NDA, for me, I'm waiting 2.5 years to post anything. How did you stay relevant? How did you cope with that and finding clients and stuff?
It's hard because, there's like, say, Call of Duty. I have maybe like 7 years of Call of Duty I can't show, which which kind of sucks, but
Yeah.
it's kind of just rolling with the punches. Again, it's just being aware of the situation. Is like certain jobs are more open to that, certain jobs aren't, but it's usually offset. Like they pay you more, but you can't show anything. Maybe they pay you less, but you can show everything. There's always pros and cons to every job, and I think I have enough of that type of work. I think the stuff I did on Call of Duty is probably the most well executed of that type of work I've ever done. So it's kind of a shame I can't show it, but I feel like there's enough of that in my portfolio that it's not too big of a deal because people can kind of get an idea of they can kind of see that I can do it, even though it's, like 8 years or 10 years old now. So it's not too big of an issue. But as far as staying relevant and adapting, I think, like I was saying earlier, always picking a job or being in an environment where maybe you're the worst person in the room, or try to be, where you're always surrounded by amazing people that you can learn from all the time, and picking projects that aren't identical to the last project you worked on. Like, say, at Weta was really good because there's always so many jobs coming in. So you're working on like fantasy one day, and then sci-fi another day, and then space opera or whatever. So you're learning all these different things all the time, and you grow a lot really fast because you're, always doing something. 1 week you're doing sci-fi, the next day you're maybe doing some medieval armor or something, and there's so many things you're learning all the time.
Yeah.
But after I left, it's easy to get pigeonholed a little bit, like, oh, I'm the sci-fi mech guy or whatever. But then after a while, it's like, it gets tough because it's like, I like doing that stuff, but I can feel I'm not growing. I'm being asked to do, they're lining up the nails and I'm being asked to hammer in the same type of nails every day. And it's steady work. It's great work. The clients are great to work with and it's really fun. But in the back of my mind, I knew part of me wasn't growing, that needed to be growing. And so making a change to go work on something like Halo or something where it's not like near future sci-fi, it's very almost like kind of space opera and really out there sci-fi. There's a lot of things I wasn't getting from these other projects that I'm getting now, and the environment is really nurturing the things that I want to be learning and growing at. So I feel like that was a good transition and change that I needed to make.
Yeah, creative people we are very different than other jobs, because I call that what you said, hitting the nails. I call that for me that's a creative burn. When I'm doing all the time the same stuff, I'll start being burned out, and I'm like, I can't anymore do this. I want to do something more creative, more fun. I mean, it's bringing money, it's bringing everything, but
yeah,
no,
it's hard.
It's the balance.
Especially freelancing. It can be scary. You don't know when the next job is going to come in, and maybe things have been steady for a long time, but the idea of changing that, like changing everything, like, oh, I'm going to do something completely new, is very scary sometimes. And it can be a bit of a change, but again, like back to, if you're always kind of in the mindset of learning and like, okay, I can adapt to this new environment and I'll learn how I need to do things. And it's usually ends up being not as scary as I thought once I get started, or not as big of a change as I thought. And I'm much happier after all these kind of uncomfortable changes than had I just stayed in the same environment and been doing the same thing because I was too scared to make the change. But it's hard sometimes because things can be steady and it's like this, I don't want to rock the boat, money's really good, but sometimes you just got to analyze and make the best decision for you.
Yeah. It's always about decisions in this life. It's always about that, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go. So we are soon finishing. And what I want to know, what can we expect from you, Ben, in next couple of months of your IP is coming out? Is that going to be a Kickstarter campaign, or can you talk a little bit about the IP? If no, I understand.
I'll probably have more. I'm going to try to show stuff later in the year. That's all I'll say. But there's a lot of X's right there for something. Something, yeah. It's almost done. I thought it would take me 1 year, and I'm on year 3. So if you're working on anything, don't feel bad if it takes longer than you think. I would triple however long you think it takes, at least triple it. and that's probably more accurate to how long it will take you to do something for yourself. But again, like the traveling experience, I don't regret it. You know, I could have made a lot more money had I spent all that time working for clients, but the thing I'm making, I own 100%. It's all mine. And even if it ultimately could totally fail, you know, it could come out and totally bomb. No one likes it. Everyone hates it. I'm still going to be way happier investing my time in that and something that I own 100% than had I just made more money in my bank account or something. Bringing something new in the world that's 100% you is just the most exciting thing to me, at least right now. And I think we need more artists to do that. You know, like I really admire, you know, this guy Otomo, and guys like Miyazaki or the Dragon Ball creator right there. Just bringing something new into the world that brings people joy and they love it. And I feel like that's a really longer lasting legacy to leave behind. Like there's so many things we can do that can make a lot of money, but it doesn't really leave anything behind. Doesn't leave a lasting impression behind. You know, we can make a ton of money teaching or doing all these other things, but I don't feel like I'm not creating anything that's the world can enjoy. You know, I feel like that's, for me, that's my calling. I feel like that's my purpose the next 5, 10, however long I have left. I really want to try to do that as much as I can.
Speaking about IP, because I'm also doing mine, what was the scariest thing for you? And was it hard and was it taxing for you? Because for me, it is one of the hardest things I've done. And I'm finishing also soon.
It's very hard.
3 years, there is nobody. I mean, you can ask always your colleagues, but there is that added pressure. Was that like for you? Because
I think the hardest thing was just understanding, because there's a lot of ways to do things. Like I have friends who are like posting stuff every day and that kind of thing and building hype and building the brand around that. But I prefer to just make it and then kind of drop it as much as I can, which would be awesome. But learning how like copyright law works, I think, is also very important. Like if you design the next Iron Man or something, right? Like don't post that on the internet. Get a copyright lawyer, get it copyrighted, get it trade, you know, get all that stuff done before you put anything on the internet, because it's so easy for companies overseas or whatever to just take your thing and trademark it in that country, and it's hard to do anything. So I'd say if you have the amazing idea for the next Iron Man robot, don't put it on the internet, don't talk about it. Make sure to do it the right way and make some sort of product that you can trademark and copyright. Has been one of the more interesting things to understand and learn as I've been making my own thing.
The business side of art.
Just the realities of how laws work in different countries and being aware of how unfortunately a lot of people can exploit that, and it's not so good for us because we just want to like make something cool and share it with the world immediately. And it's so easy now with Instagram and all these things to just put stuff out there, but just make sure your bases are all covered legally, that you own the copyrights to your work. And so if anything does happen, I hope it doesn't, but if it does, you're protected and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I remember the first time when I saw that about copyright and stuff was with Zaha Hadid, and I was shocked. In China, she was making some building and it had 3 towers. And in China, they were making 2 towers of it, and nobody can sue them because it was 30% different than the design she did. So and it was going to finish faster than her building. It was going to be faster. So I was like, what the hell is going on here? So that I'm very happy that we are talking about this stuff.
It's very interesting. Like talking with a copyright lawyer, some of the things he said, like, someone could change it. I think it was like 20%, 30%. So they could just take your drawing and just like make the face different, and they're like, oh, it's different. You know, it's 20% different. Too bad.
It's not the same anymore. I changed.
You made your robot green instead of purple. It's different. You know, it's kind of amazing how that works, and just to be aware of that, especially with how easy information can spread. Like if you can put a drawing on the internet and the whole world can see it in a week or something, you know?
Yeah.
just make sure to protect yourself for putting it out there. And that's another reason I haven't posted anything of my, because mainly because of that. It's just I want to control how that gets out there and make sure everything's by the book legally and stuff. And even if it looks like creatively I haven't done personal work in 3 years or whatever, if that's the price I need to pay, I'm willing to do that in order to do it the right way, or at least how I feel is the right way.
Yeah, but once you drop everything, I think the people are gonna go crazy. Like when they see a lot of work on one place.
I hope so. I'm totally prepared for utter failure.
You shouldn't hope. I'm sure 99% that people
But
will go crazy. I'll be the first one to get the book if you.
I think if I like it, I think there'll be people that will like it. But yeah, we'll see. I'm excited to finally get something out there, get something new out there. I think everyone's ready for new things. You know, there's so many sequels and reboots and reboots that people want something new. So I'd encourage everyone to, if you got some cool story, cool idea, like start working on it, start making it. Even if it takes you a couple years to do, that can also be scary. But
yeah,
forget who told me this, but you know, the time's going to pass anyway. You know, you're like, oh, it's going to take me 3 years to make that, or 4 years, or whatever. But those 4 years are going to happen anyway. You know, and at the end of those 4 years, you could have some great new story that the world can enjoy, or you could have done nothing. You know.
Yeah. Nobody can escape the time. Yeah, was very smart. That was very smart what you said. Okay, then Ben, we have been speaking for 1 hour exactly, and I'm super happy that we talked about all of this stuff. I'm super happy that you joined. Sorry for interrupting. I'm super happy that you came, and I'm sure that people will enjoy this stream because you touched so many subjects that people don't talk about. So
yeah, I hope so.
I can't wait to meet you. I hope that Andre is gonna bring you to THU. Andre, if you're watching this, I will send you the link. Bring Ben because I want to meet him in person. And thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you very much.
Have a great day, guys, or the evening. I don't know, because here it's 7 a.m. And I'll see you on the next stream. Hit the subscribe button. Bye, Ben.
Bye, guys.